Medieval romance, a fairy tale turned nightmare. When you think of medieval romance, what comes to mind? Perhaps valiant knights, damsels in distress, and epic battles fought for love. Our modern conception of romance is indeed heavily influenced by this era, from the chivalrous code of conduct to tales of star-crossed lovers. However, the reality of medieval marriage was worlds apart from the romantic union we associate with the term today. When it came to matters of the heart, the church offered little guidance that could be considered progressive or enlightened. Men were encouraged to express their affection through acts of physical prowess and aggression, believing that conquering or possessing a woman's body was the ultimate testament to their virility. This disturbing mentality led to appalling practices such as the abduction of women, where men would violently seize their partners away, believing it justified their fierce displays of masculinity. Tales of doomed lovers whose love resulted in death and destruction were seen as the epitome of romance. From the toxic ideals of courtly love to the disturbing practices of arranged child marriages, the medieval era offers a cautionary tale of what not to do when it comes to love. But here's the thing. While this period may seem like a distant and irrelevant chapter in history, it's crucial to recognize that its impact reverberates even today. Many of these medieval notions about love, gender roles, and relationships have subtly weaseled their way into our modern-day romantic culture. The glorification of self-sacrificing, martyrdom, the normalization of obsessive behavior, and the pathologization of female sexuality continue to cast long shadows on our contemporary notions of love. So as we peel back the layers of this seemingly timeless fairy tale, we must confront and challenge these toxic remnants head. Only then can we hope to redefine love in a way that celebrates mutual respect, healthy communication, and genuine affection rather than the medieval era's disturbing trappings. Stories like that of Romeo and Juliet epitomized a culture that glorified self-destructive behavior and fatal heartbreak, rather than celebrating love that brought joy, companionship, or personal growth. Medieval culture championed a love that was obsessive, possessive, and ultimately destructive. The obsession with tragic romance contributed to a fatalistic view of love, discouraging individuals from pursuing healthy, consensual relationships and perpetuating a culture that normalized emotional manipulation, codependency, and self-harm within romantic relationships. Tournaments descended into brutal free-for-alls with participants fighting to maim and humiliate their opponents, and duels were common to settle romantic disputes. Such toxic displays were glorified in songs and stories, perpetuating a culture of toxic masculinity and normalizing extreme violence as a means to demonstrate love and valor. How do you think the medieval era's concept of love compares to our modern understanding of romance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights might just shed light on some aspects we haven't fully explored. Additionally, if you want to dive deeper into the rich tapestry of history, I encourage you to explore more of our videos. Each one is a portal to a captivating chapter of the past, waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for joining me on this enlightening journey through time. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and never stop asking questions. After all, curiosity is the cornerstone of all discovery. Women were reduced to objects to be fought over and possessed, with their consent and agency completely disregarded. The medieval belief that men should dominate and subdue women was deeply ingrained in their understanding of gender roles. They truly believed that women were inferior beings whose primary purpose was to serve as prizes, to be won and controlled by their male counterparts. You see, the medieval church harbored a deep-seated aversion to sexual pleasure, viewing any physical gratification outside of procreation as sinful and unnatural. Medieval women were legally and socially subordinate to men, stripped of the ability to own property, control their own finances, or make independent decisions regarding marriage or sex. They were literally treated as chattel, items to be bought, sold, and inherited like livestock. This complete disempowerment extended to legal proceedings as well, where women's testimony was routinely dismissed as unreliable, and they had no standing to initiate divorce proceedings. Even the concept of adultery laws illustrate how women's autonomy over their own bodies was non-existent. Adultery, the crime of having sex outside of marriage, was viewed as a theft of property rather than a breach of trust. Husbands could accuse their wives of adultery with little to no evidence, using it as a way to punish or even kill their spouses. This distorted perspective reduced women to objects of male ownership and allowed for extreme actions under the guise of protecting a husband's honor. This doctrine cast desire itself as something inherently evil and dangerous, fostering a climate of guilt and shame around matters of sexuality. To ensure the sanctity of marriage remained intact, the church taught that engaging in sexual relations within wedlock was a grave sin, condemning those who strayed from the narrow path of celibacy or restrictive expectations. Within this framework, women bore the brunt of the blame and persecution, as they were deemed the weaker sex, more susceptible to temptation, and capable of corrupting men with their seductive wiles. The portrayal of female sexuality as sinful and treacherous not only inflicted emotional and psychological harm on countless individuals, but also contributed to the erosion of trust and open communication in intimate relationships. Picture this. Parents arranging marriages between children as young as 7 and 9, primarily as a means to secure advantageous political alliances or economic benefits. These unions were legally binding contracts that transferred the bride from her father's care to that of her husband, with little regard for affection, compatibility, or the bride's consent. Child brides were often sent to live with their new families without ceremony or support, expected to navigate this drastic change with little guidance or autonomy. The focus on securing alliances and assets through marriage commodified women, reducing them to mere bargaining chips in a game of familial ambition. The prevalence of child marriages robbed countless individuals of their childhood, subjecting them to adult responsibilities and obligations before they were emotionally or psychologically prepared to handle them. However, this seemingly enchanting period had its own twisted version of romance, one that was drastically different from the fairy tale we've been fed. In this video, we pull back the curtain on this long-forgotten culture of love and shed light on its truly disturbing practices that will make you question if this so-called romance was all it was cracked up to be. Buckle up, because you're in for an eye-opening journey through medieval romance. At the heart of medieval romance was the concept of courtly love, a philosophical and artistic movement. European culture from the 12th to 14th centuries, it established an idealistic standard for how love should be conducted among the nobility. Central to this doctrine was the glorification of unrequited love, which held that a lover's devotion should be proven through endless longing and rejection rather than mutual affection. These rigid rules assigned specific roles to men and women, reinforcing traditional gender norms and power structures. Men were expected to be valiant and chivalrous, showering their ladies with gifts and engaging in displays of bravery and martial skill to win their favor. Women, on the other hand, were portrayed as ethereal creatures whose beauty and virtue were objects of male desire and pursuit. While the idea of courtly love may sound appealing on the surface, upon closer examination it reveals a troubling reality. The elevation of unrequited love normalized emotional abuse and obsessive behavior. For women, their value was determined solely by their ability to elicit romantic devotion from men, and any attempt to reciprocate affection or exercise agency over their own romantic prospects was seen as inappropriate or This warped perception of love created a culture of emotional manipulation and subjugation, where women were reduced to passive recipients of male attention and validation, while courtly love set the cultural standard. Marriage was the binding institution that regulated romantic relationships in medieval society. During the Middle Ages, the Christian Church held immense power and influence over people's lives, permeating every aspect of medieval society. In medieval culture, violence was not merely tolerated, but shockingly celebrated as a natural and even desirable element of romantic pursuits. Perhaps the most alarming aspect of medieval romance was the utter absence of women's rights and agency. One of the most haunting aspects of medieval romance was its tendency to elevate tragic love stories to an almost mythical status. So there you have it, a chilling glimpse into the disturbing realities of medieval romance. Now that you've finished watching this video, I have a question for you.